The following is an interview with Mac Showers. It's being conducted at the Jefferson in Arlington, Virginia on September 23rd, 2010. Mr. Showers, can you state your full name, your date of birth, and your birthplace?
Name is Donald McCollister Showers. I was born on the 25th of August, 1919 in Iowa City, Iowa.
So tell me about your hometown.
Iowa City was a university town. It's the home of the University of Iowa. And at the time I was born and growing up, that was about the only activity in the town, was to support the university. The city now has grown substantially, and I haven't been there for a long while. I really don't know what makes Iowa City big today, except the university has continued to get larger and is still there and is a big university with a big medical school and a law school and all that other stuff. I was raised on a farm about a mile from Iowa City, and I had to do farm work when I got into high school and college and wanted to play sports. My father says, if you think you need exercise, I'll give you plenty of exercise on the farm. And I never played football or baseball or basketball or anything. So I did a lot of farm work until about my third year of college, when I was majoring in journalism, and I started working on the school newspaper, the University of Iowa newspaper, the Daily Iowan. And in my third year of school, I became the campus editor of the Daily Iowan, and then in my senior year, I became the city editor of the Daily Iowan. And the Daily Iowan was a morning newspaper, so our afternoons and evenings were spent putting the paper together. And my father was rather proud of the fact that I was working on the paper and occasionally got a byline, so I got excused from the farm work.
Did you have cattle, or did you have crops, or what were you doing?
We had cattle and hogs and crops and chickens and everything you'd look for on a farm. We raised a lot of corn and wheat and oats. We raised our own feed for our cattle, and we raised corn that was sold, and it was a big farm, and my dad did a lot of farming. Hay, we grew our own hay and harvested that, and it was a big working farm.
Mm-hmm. What did you like about the farm experience? Looking back, it just sounds like a lot of work, but what did you learn from that?
It was a lot of work, and I think it's fair to say I didn't really relish it at the time. I thought maybe sometimes I was being penalized a little bit, but looking back on it, I'm glad, absolutely glad, that that's the background I had, because I see other people who didn't have that kind of upbringing, and I don't think they turned out as well.
So a little hard work never hurt anybody, right?
Exactly.
So what was your mother like?
My mother was a German woman. She had her parents had immigrated from Germany and settled in Wisconsin, but she went to school at the University of Iowa, and she knew the German language very well, and she then became a German teacher at schools in Iowa, and subsequently married my father. She didn't teach anymore after she married him, but she was a good German housewife to a farmer. Okay. And she was a good cook. She was a good mother. There were 4 children, 2 boys and 2 girls. I was the first boy, and second child, first boy.
And I heard she had to give you the name Mac.
Well, that was because of my great-grandfather. This farm we were on had originally been my great-grandfather's farm, and he had hired my father to be his manager when he became disabled at an old age. Mind you, he was my father's grandfather, my great-grandfather. if you go back and look at life expectancies in the 1800s, he was born in 1836, and he lived until 1927, which is 93 years or something like that. I'm sure it exceeded all life expectancy at that time. And I lived to be 8 years old before he died. I was born in 1919 and he died in 1927. So I knew him well and he knew me, and I had pictures. I had pictures of him.
So he had the name McCollister, right?
His name was James McCollister.
Okay.
And one of the provisions he imposed on my father when he hired him to be the manager of his farm was that he was called Mr. Mac. That was his nickname around town, and he was very proud of that. So he told my father that he would like his firstborn son to carry the middle name of McCollister and be called Mac. So when I was born, I was immediately Mac Showers. And that name has stuck with me all the time. That name I used in the Navy and every place else.
Okay, good. So, so your dad worked hard on the farm. Your mom, you said she was a good cook, right?
Right.
What was her specialty?
For me, it was cherry pie. But I had to pick the cherries and take the pits out. And she'd make the cherry pie.
Okay.
Cherry pie is still my favorite.
Uh-huh.
But it's not like my mother used to make.
Yeah. Did you and your siblings have any fun together out there on the farm, or what was your fun? Maybe the winters, did you get to sled ride or not?
We did all that you do on the farm.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
I had two sisters. One was older than me, and one was younger, and I had a younger brother. And we all grew up pretty close together. We all got along fine, no problem. We worked on the farm. The girls didn't work as much as the boys, and although they helped around the house. But my dad, on occasion, I heard my father say, "I wish I had raised fat hogs instead of girls."
Oh.
But that was a joke.
So when you went to college, you studied journalism and political science.
Political science.
Right? And then you decided, you heard about the draft coming,
Right.
and what year was that?
1940, the draft bill was being talked about and worked on because legislators were anticipating that we were going to probably get involved in the European War, which had started in 1939, and that we needed to build up our armed forces. And the Draft Act was passed in September of 1940, but I had already enlisted in the Navy in August of 1940, so I was not drafted.
Okay. So when you went into the service, then what was that like when you first went in, and what did you do first?
Well, after I signed up, I didn't go in for a year because the Navy had oversubscribed their training quota, and they wrote me a letter and said that I could wait until they could fit me in, training to be a commissioned officer in the Navy. I could wait until they could fit me in, or if I wanted to go back to school for another year, I could do that, and they would call me the following June. And that's what I chose to do because I still had I still had a full semester of credit I had to get for graduation. And so I did go back to school and continued to work on the newspaper that I was, Daily Iowan, that I was working on. And then I went on active duty in June 1941 at Northwestern University in Chicago at the Midshipman School, where I got 3 months of Navy training, and then I was commissioned an ensign in the Navy on the 12th of September 1941, before the war, before we got involved in the war.
So, so September, you were in the Navy now.
I was in the Navy, and I stayed on active duty and continued on active duty throughout the war and until I retired at the end of 1971. 31 years.
Wow.